So, Chris, I was curious about, as a horror fan, what did you find most refreshing about the Terrifier franchise? Because you really got behind the first one and gave it a platform through Talk is Jericho, which is how myself and so many others first heard of it.
That's cool to hear because that was my goal. When I saw that movie, it was pointed out to me by Rich from Fozzy, the guitar player. Fozzy said, "You got to check out this movie," and I was like, "What is it?" And he showed me the hacksaw kill, the famous kill, and I couldn't believe it. I hadn't seen anything like that in a long time. You know, you see a lot of horror movies, you're almost desensitized. That one got me. And then watching the movie, just how gritty it was. Obviously, Art the Clown, it was like the most iconic movie killer that we'd seen in 25, 30 years. And right out of the gate, he was so riveting because he really is a clown, honking horns, riding tricycles, being a clown, but just being one of the most vicious killers I've seen in movies in a while. It's not just one stab, it's just like the dichotomy between this goofy, funny, clownish guy and then this just violently brutal killer just really hooked me right out of the gate. So that's what I wanted to do, was proclaim from the rooftop to all, 12 million of my social media followers. If you like horror movies, you have to see Terrifier. And it worked. And there was a buzz about it. And like I said, it just, to me, was something that I hadn't seen in years. And I watch a lot of horror, and this one just clicked for me with a combination of all those things.
That's awesome. And you got to be a part of the second film, and your post-credit scene was filmed at a mental institution. You're eating some gross Halloween-themed food. How surreal was that experience? Because it has to be easy to spook yourself out when you're at an actual mental institution.
Well, it was weird too, because it was like October and it was about 3 in the morning. So it was cold. The institution was just like you said, it was creepy. It wasn't like filthy, but it wasn't like the cleanest of places. It really fit the vibe of Terrifier. Like I said, it just was a gritty location. And that scene was actually a lot longer, which led to the actual ending of the movie. It came out in the same time frame, like over the last year, that had the same ending. So we had to recut it and kind of reshoot it. So it was actually a longer scene than that. But either way, it was really cool to be involved and just see all the passion of the people behind this project. And it leaves the door wide open for Terrifier 3 for me.
Yeah, I mean the dream has to be getting like killed by Art the Clown, right? Would you like to show up in three and get
Well, I mean,
dismembered in a
yeah,
memorable way?
and we had discussed a few different ideas when Damien was putting together the script, and there was actually another great idea as well that just didn't really fit the narrative of the story. But yeah, of course, you know what I mean. And I think, once again, it's right there to do more. But either way, I think Terrifier 2. When you're talking about how do you top one, well, I've been saying, like, if one is Kill 'Em All by Metallica, two is Master of Puppets. It's the same vibe, but it's just so much more advanced and such a better movie. Even though Terrifier 1 was a great movie too, this one has just gone above and beyond to really take that legacy and move it forward in a completely new way.
Yeah, and you've been you're always representing horror through your social media, through your podcast, and you've kind of incorporated some horror elements into your own wrestling work with like the Painmaker gimmick you had, which is a cool blend of like metal and horror. What kind of inspiration do you get from just this realm that you're able to, repurpose?
Well, so when I went back to Japan and had the match, still kind of WWE Chris Jericho, and it didn't really fit the vibe of what I wanted to do. And it was much more of a brutal, violent attitude that I had. And I just thought, well, what would a serial killer look like if he was a pro wrestler? And that's kind of became a thing. Was just my kind of interpretation of, let's say a serial killer had a wrestling match. What would he do? What would he look like? How would he act? And that's where the Painmaker came from. So it is more not really influenced by a movie per se, but influenced by that vibe of, like, what would a killer look like? What would he feel like? What would he do? And that kind of really helped get that character up and rolling. So much more of a murderous intent with the Painmaker, which is why anytime I have some kind of a really violent death match sort of a thing, that's when you'll see the Painmaker.
Awesome. And you've done some acting before. You had some great scenes in MacGruber. How did that working relationship with Will Forte come about?
I don't really just we did an off movie, and originally the script, the part was a lot smaller. And I knew that Will Forte was a groundling, and I studied with the Groundlings for a year, improv comedy troupe in Los Angeles. So I just improved. I just threw a couple improv lines and Will went with it. And that scene went from 2 lines to like 12 lines or whatever it was, just from us improving and going back and forth. I was like, what have I got to lose? If they don't like it, they'll just tell us to shoot the scene again. But they did like it. And they said, well, yeah, that's great. And then we did it a couple more times. Now the improv has now become part of the script. And the scene is a memorable one. And like I said, I was just like, fuck, I got nothing to lose. I'll just see if Will wants to do some improv as a groundling. And he did. So it was a lot of fun. And that's where that started and I remember Lorne Michaels was there, and he was sitting in Video Village, which is where everybody kind of watches. And everyone knew that I had improv'd, but I didn't know that Lorne Michaels was there because it's obviously a Saturday Night Live movie. And after the scene was done, it's like, Lorne would like to see you. I'm like, Lorne, yeah, Lorne Michaels? Yeah, he's been watching. I was like, oh no. So I go out there and it's like, it really is. His voice is just like Mike Myers does it in Dr. Evil. Like Dr. Evil is Lorne Michaels, right? Like, hello, Chris, or whatever. And he's like, I see you did some improv. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, very funny stuff. I enjoyed it. And that was it. But I was just like, Lorne Michaels said I was funny.
That is awesome. And you're really like, you've been working for decades, but you're kind of peaking creatively, both in wrestling and music right now. You're doing great work in AEW. Fozzy's been blowing up the past couple of years. I Still Burn's doing great. How wild is it that you've been able to incorporate, all of your knowledge and still, better yourself when so many people will peak out at this point?
So I went and saw the Rolling Stones twice over the last year. And I'm watching Mick Jagger, who was 79. He's 80 now, I believe. And he still looks like Mick Jagger and he still sings like Mick Jagger. And it's a time warp, man. It's like, he's 80, but dude, it doesn't matter. And that's when I really started kicking in. I still look like Chris Jericho. I still work like Chris Jericho. So the age thing really doesn't affect me. Some people have hangups about it, and that's fine. But to me, like, I think I'm having a career year here in 2022 because I'm revitalized and the creativity is flowing. I kind of had a little bit of a physical transformation, which makes you look like Chris Jericho. And as long as you can keep that going, I'm just more inspired than ever. And same thing with Fozzy. I mean, I think the band has grown so much. Like you said, I Still Burn is one of the most played songs on the radio this year. Judas just went gold. I mean, there's so much of a buzz and momentum behind the band than there ever was before. And we've been going for 22 years. So to me, it's like, it's not the age or it's what you're doing with your experience to continue to create great moments and do great work that anybody that's a fan of yours can be proud of. Now, there's always going to be people that aren't a fan of yours. You know what I mean? And I can't change that. All I care about is the people that appreciate my work and making new fans with that work that I'm doing. And that's been working out very well. And that's the mindset.